Welcome everyone to the finals of the Freestyle Chess in Paris. We have Magnus Carlsen taking his chair. He's up against Hikaru Nakamura. In the first game, Magnus Carlsen scored a win with the white pieces and now needs just a draw to win the title and $200,000. It's going to be a tough task for Hikaru to win on demand. Let's have a look at the position. We have a rook, queen, bishop, knight, king, rook, knight, and bishop. So, in a way, you can feel it that this position is similar to a normal chess because the king is here on e1. It makes a huge difference. He opens with b4, Hikaru, and he does it immediately. And now Magnus adjusts his pieces. Hikaru's idea is maybe to put the bishop on b2 on this long diagonal, and it's one of the best moves in the position. And Magnus is now thinking about what to do. A few options that he has are g6, opening up the bishop, b5 symmetry, maybe c6. He does go c6, opening up this bishop, this queen on the long diagonal. He's hitting the h2 pawn. For Hikaru to save this pawn, knight f3 or g3 make a lot of sense because g3 opens up this bishop, knight f3 just brings out the knight. Magnus made that last move after nearly 8.5 minutes of thought. He goes g3, opening up the bishop. And now Magnus goes g6. So the bishop on h8 is attacking the rook on a1. Bishop comes out to b2. He is trading the bishops. And now for Magnus, the question is, does he trade or does he put the knight on f6? What should be his way of continuing? Brings his knight out to f6 and makes it a very logical move here. And Hikaru now can play this very interesting move a4, gaining space on the queen side. One of the main points being a5 being met with b5. So that's a very logical move, a4. And I guess it's not easy to understand whether you should go a4 or you should, he goes f4. Right into the heart of the position. And here there's a very interesting moment. If you play d5, bishop e5 simply traps the queen. But Magnus finds an amazing move, a5. I love this move because you can't push b5 now. See, b5 is a free pawn. I take with the rook and the a2 pawn is weak. So a3 played, and now this tension which exists between the a5 and b4 pawn is to black's advantage. So a5 has been played by Magnus, a3 by Hikaru. And now Magnus, what does he do? He simply short castles here. So he short castles. And now Hikaru brings his knight out to f3. The knight is controlling the center. And for Magnus, the question is, what does he do next? He pushes d5, and you see now the bishop can actually come into e5 and attack the queen, but because the pawn was pushed to a5, a square has been created on a7. Impeccable timing by Magnus. First c6, then a5, then d5. He just understands this chess 960 freestyle chess very well. Knight goes to f2. And maybe Hikaru wants to put the knight on d3 to e5. He's aiming for that e5 square. And Magnus very clearly knows what he needs to make a draw. He goes knight g4. And now you can see the knights are being offered to trade. The bishops are also facing off against each other. And already it does look like a great position for black. And Hikaru comes back to his chair and is deciding which piece to trade. He takes the bishop on h8, king takes on h8, And he can now give a check and sort of connect his rooks later on. But also, whether to trade on g4 or not is the big question. Hikaru decides to avoid the trade. He goes knight to d3. A very interesting move. He is deciding not to trade the knights on f2 and g4. And pawn comes up to f6. Now the point here is that he wants to just play in the center, e5. Castles has been played. And maybe his idea is not even to play e5. It's just to control the e5 square so that the white knights cannot go there. Short castle by white. And the knight comes out to f7. A very logical move here by Magnus. Optically, it does feel white's position is very cool, but I think white's pieces aren't doing much. If you look at these two knights, they are not able to move forward. He goes queen b2, connecting the rooks. Very logical chess. This is a little bit under pressure, and also black's knight could actually come by a d6. He does play it, and e3 played by Hikaru very quickly. But you can see how the knight is now controlling the e4 and c4 squares. Black already seems to be in a very good position. Now, from here, is there any chance for Hikaru to outwit Magnus? Knight h6 played. I guess what Magnus wants to do next is go knight f2, knight f7. But there was no need to remove the knight unprovoked, right? Knight h6 played. The knight comes out to f2. And white's idea is d3, e4. And just play in the center. So he goes in with the knight to g4, offering a trade of knights. Will Hikaru take it? He doesn't. He goes to d3. Magnus is pretty clear about what he needs. A draw will make him the champion. So he goes back, he repeats. Hikaru, of course, cannot repeat. That would mean that he's just giving up on this position. And a very logical thing here is to continue, and he does it. Bishop g2, well done. He's fighting on. Even though his position is far from ideal to play for a win, he's going on. He's going on. Knight comes back to f7. Later he can play his pawn to e5 if possible. Right now it's so well guarded, the e5 square. And Hikaru plays his knight to d4. Puts his knight here and keeps an eye on all of these squares in the center. He goes knight to c4 here. Magnus slowly kind of losing a bit of threat here. You can see that he's attacking the queen and the d2 pawn. But if Hikaru brings his queen up to c3, what's happening? It's an interesting moment. He does play it. Now, do you want to really play e5? Now, e5 is actually a very, very risky move, I feel. Because take, you can see the queen is right opposite the king. So, you can see there Hikaru is thinking. He takes on b4. Takes back. And now rook takes rook. Rook takes rook. Very, very interesting movement now. Magnus pushes his pawn to e5. Can Hikaru take? Yes, he takes. I believe Magnus will take back with the pawn. Yes, he does. Knight f takes e5. And now, will the knight go back to f3 or b3? Actually, b3 makes a little more sense. Hikaru does play his knight to b3. And firstly, there is some pressure on e5 point. Then the second thing is I can go knight a5 and try to trade off this knight. So some possibilities are sprouting here for Hikaru. I guess first thing that Magnus wants to do is just come out of this diagonal with king g8. No, but he plays his queen to d6 first. Interesting move. But now knight a5. In fact, Magnus could have played b6 here, but he goes, if Hikaru goes knight a5 here, that would be really cool, because knight takes, pawn takes, he'll have some pressure here from the white side here, because the a5 pawn will restrict the b7 pawn and you can put some pressure. He does play knight a5. A good move. So Magnus takes, knight takes a5. B takes a5, opening up the b file for the rook at some point. And now this is great position actually for Hikaru. I guess there's some pressure. I mean, from the position he started off with, he now has possibilities here. He can think about putting some pressure on Magnus. Another great move here would be e4, because black would like to push e4, then bring his knight into the center of the board. But if you push e4, it's a little anti-positional move, because your bishop is on a light square. You don't want to be pushing your pawn on a light square. But in a way, it's a great move and he finds it. Because if d4 now, I can go queen c5. And if you trade, I take. And look at this. The knight is now putting pressure on b7. And it's a great thing. Great development here. So now black goes pawn takes pawn. So bishop takes pawn makes a lot of sense. Takes on e4. And here there is some pressure. In fact, there was another possibility here for Hikaru, which was to play knight c5 and take it back with the knight. But he decided to take with the bishop. Bishop h3 by Magnus. A good move. Look at this. If the knight jumps in here, putting pressure on the bishop and the squares here, the rook opening up, it will be something for black. Hikaru comes back bishop h1. A very logical move. He would like to play knight f2, hitting the bishop, and then put the knight on the e4 square. Queen comes to f6. And now Hikaru plays his knight to f2, attacking the bishop. He wants to come into the center here. So a lot is happening, but knight g5 is the best move here. Magnus finds it. Great move, because if you take knight h3, already the king is under huge pressure. Hikaru brings his queen in. Good move. Things are heating up. In a way, if you see, if Hikaru gets rook b1 to b7 or rook e1 to e5, these two pawns for black are weak. So Magnus must be very much alert. He goes e4, a good move to put pressure on the rook. Now you can go rook b1 to attack b7. You can also go rook e1 to attack e4. Several possibilities here. He goes rook e1. Okay, you can't take on e4 actually because there's queen f1 mate, but you can take with the bishop. Be knight takes, knight h3. Some tactics here with this knight defending here and also defending e4 pawn could get overloaded. Magnus plays queen to f5. Is there some tactic here? Think about it. Bishop takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes bishop, and if you take with the queen, I have queen takes e4, I'm a pawn up. Wow. Some tactics are brewing up in the air because of the undefended nature of black's pieces. Oh, Hikaru goes for it, takes the pawn on e4. Wow, has Magnus missed it? Is Hikaru now better? Seriously. You have to take on e4, there's no other move. So he takes it, knight e4, but the calmness with which Magnus plays shows he's things under control. Queen h3, queen e4 is just better for white. So what does Magnus have on his mind? Well, he sees that his knight is hanging. This knight is hanging. Why don't I do a desperado? Yes, knight takes d2, a great move. Because now I'm threatening knight f3 check. If you take the knight, I can pick up your knight. And that is exactly what Magnus had on his mind, which is why the position is once again equalized. Goes knight to f4. And in a way, the knight on d2 needs to wriggle out from here. Maybe knight c4 here is possible. He goes g5. Magnus wants to sort of simplify this very quickly. Because if queen takes d2, there's g takes f4. If the knight moves away, there's knight f3 check. So he plays queen d2, g takes f4 has been taken. And Hikaru now thinking about what to take back the pawn with. He takes with the queen. You can see white is a pawn up now. Taking here maybe too risky. Yeah, queen a5 check. But it's also possible. Magnus simply trades the queen. He's like, I don't want any such funny business. I'm taking here. Now rook takes f4 for Hikaru. Yes, for Magnus, he takes it. Rook takes f4. And we are very close to a draw. And with this draw, Magnus would win the second leg of the Freestyle Grand Slam Tour. The first leg was won by Vincent Keimer. The second one will be won by Magnus. It's a fantastic tour for the players because the winner takes home a massive $200,000. The second placed player gets $140,000 and the third placed player gets $100,000. So a lot of money here at stake. King g6. Goes for a check. Plays king at 6. He goes rook to b8. And now Magnus simply brings his rook to a4, attacking the pawn on a5. Hikaru takes. Magnus takes back. And Hikaru comes back. Rook b3 offers a draw. And Magnus will take it and become the champion. He takes it. Magnus Carlsen is the champion. Hikaru Nakamura fought well. He tried his best. but Magnus was just too solid. He did not give an inch to Hikaru there, and you can see both of them talking, and I think both of them have this rivalry which is kind of becoming more and more exciting. Although Magnus is acing most of his battles with Hikaru, the matches and games are intense, and that's all that the fans are looking for. Congratulations to Magnus Carlsen. We are signing off from Paris. This was the final game.